Hey everybody, I'm Sean Michael Afable. Welcome to Entrepreneurs, and you have our guest with us today. We have over here Nate Calima, and
Reverend Glen Oyan.
yep, he is our guest, our special guest today. And
Ruegsegger.
thanks for joining us. We're just going to have a very, very casual conversation, just talking about a few different things. So, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it, Glenn. You're a man of many different talents. You are a reverend, you're a pastor, you
A writer.
are a mentor, and now an author.
Yeah, actually, I never planned for this to happen. If I would look at myself 20 years ago, I would say that I'm a very timid person. I hate crowds. I, it's like totally ironic to be a pastor in front of many people speaking. While you were growing up, you're a timid and you hated crowd.
Right.
The moment I face crowd, I start crying. So,
Yeah, I had some similar experiences. Even though I grew up as an actor, I had some moments where I would get in front of a stage, and it's very different from being or in front of a camera, because when you're in front of a camera, there's always take two, but whenever you get in front of a crowd, it's always
it's different. Yeah.
it's nerve-wracking because you're like, there's no take two. What you say is what you say. Yeah.
Until I learned, neuro-linguistic programming.
Okay.
So it's the behavioral modification, or it's the power of suggestion. You're suggesting to yourself, like if you face a mirror, now you're suggesting something that you want to be to yourself. And every time repetition, somehow your brain becomes programmed by that thing. It's called neuro-linguistic program. It's very helpful, especially to addiction and any kinds of behavioral problems. If you want to change yourself, you can do this.
So neuro-linguistic programming, is that basically just self-talk, just saying you're
Uh,
good, you can do this? Or...
it can be for yourself, or it can be from your other people. It's more like the negative side of this is brainwashing. It's like the negative side is like you're trying to brainwash someone. Your
wow.
neuro-linguistic programming in a negative way.
Okay.
But in a positive way, like you're trying to build confidence to a person. Just like every time you say to a boy or a girl, like you're pretty, you're beautiful, you're handsome, he will grow up believing that, because it's being programmed to our brain.
Okay.
So what did you tell yourself?
I'm handsome. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're not kidding.
You're like, that one I know for sure.
No,
I don't think we need to suggest that.
So I said, I said that you're confident. You can do this. It's not your fault that you are born poor. You will be your fault if you die poor. So you have to, you have to improve yourself, and through that, little by little, I gained confidence. When I was young, there's a negative side of this. Like when I was young, we're 10 children. In 10 children in the Philippines in the 80s.
You had 10, you're one of 10?
Yeah, I'm the ninth. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl until it finished. My father and mother are OC. So,
OC?
obsessive
Oh, okay.
compulsive.
Oh, that's one way to put it.
That's why
That's what I tell my wife.
Yeah.
I'm obsessive compulsive, babe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You have to be
Nate's
like,
gonna have 20 kids. All right.
Yeah,
That's great.
so in the 80s, we came from a poor family, and sometimes with your sibling rivalry, and among the kids, I'm the ninth. I'm the youngest among the five boys, five girls, five boys. So imagine all the bullies, because you're the youngest, right?
So it made you tougher though, right?
Yeah, I hope.
Well, I feel like this is my older brother,
Uh-huh.
so growing up, we would always fight.
Oh, you bully him?
Well, I would try to bully him,
Okay.
but he's 4.5 years older than me.
Yeah,
So
okay.
when I'm 6 and he's 10, it doesn't really work out so well. Yeah.
Yeah, so they always tell me that you're dumb, you're ugly, you're dumb, you're not good in anything. So I believe that. As a young boy, you know when you're 5, 7 years old, you believe everything that your brother or your sister tell you, and he can tell you you're adopted.
Yeah.
So you will believe everything. So I
I
believe
think you
that.
told me that one time.
No, we're speculating.
Yeah.
It's funny because
I can
people
neither
always-
confirm nor deny. So because of that, I believe that. I go to school. I don't bother to go study my lesson because I believe I'm dumb. I'm stupid. So I don't try to learn how to read because I'm done anyway.
Yeah.
So that's you've been programmed. Like it's in short, you've been brainwashed in a negative way. So how did I overcome this? One day, one of my teacher. Imagine I learned how to read in grade 4. But you might ask me, how did I read in grade 4? How did I reach grade 4 if I don't know how to read? So, in grade 1, in the Philippines, in the 80s, they put us alphabetically in chairs. So,
Yeah.
I'm on the last, because my last name is Oyan, it's letter O. So, my teacher will write something in the board and then every one of us will read. Like the cats jump over the window, something like that. And then by the time it came to me, I already memorized everything. so, so when my teacher asked for me, I will stand up confidently and recite it. I don't know how to read it. I just memorize it.
Yeah.
So, and somehow the teacher, when I got busted, when he said that, okay, all student has to be, those who knows how to read has to sit in front. so, so I got busted on that one. So, but he realized that's a sign of intelligence. You know,
You can
when
memorize all
basically you scam your teacher from letting her know that you know how to read.
Yeah.
So I went on reading remedial something. So, and then my teacher, instead of from grade 1, up to grade 5, my general average is 75. I don't know if you know. 75 is like B.
Oh,
You
okay.
just, I don't know if that is
See.
It's
Like a
exactly you
C,
pass.
yeah.
That's
C,
it.
yeah.
See?
Passing.
It's just the passing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of it.
Yeah.
Because, if you think you are less,
Yeah.
and you just pass, it's
Yeah.
like you're happy. It's
Yeah,
like,
low
yeah, your low expectation.
I'm thinking about in culture right now. There's, a lot of people grow up and they don't have maybe the best self-confidence or the best image of themselves. I'm trying to think of the word for it. They don't have that that confidence in themselves, or they feel like they haven't done well in a certain area.
Mhm.
I see that somewhat common
You don't have
in
a sense of self-worth.
self-worth, or there's just this something missing within the confidence. And so with you it was kind of like how you grew up with
Yeah.
the youngest,
Mhm.
and maybe you weren't so great in some areas. But so where's your confidence now?
So, because of my teacher, he saw something in me, and this is the solution to all people who experience this. There will be a person one day. It will come to your life and it will tell you something different about this guy. So he gave me 80. So that's the first time I was able to see 80. It's like a B plus or something. In my
Yeah.
grade. And I cannot believe that. I went home thinking all the things that they told to me are lies. I mean,
I can do this.
yeah.
Okay.
From our school, I walk like maybe 5 or 7 miles.
Wow.
I just walk. In the Philippines, we always walk. So
Yeah.
I walk there. Then while I'm walking, I'm contemplating on that 80. Like, so in that point of my life, I realized, I said all the things that they say are lies. So, and then I started saying to myself, if God said, anyone who has wisdom, let him ask for, God gives wisdom. So I prayed. I said, Lord, I want wisdom. And now I have 3 degrees in college, and I'm thinking of for my master. So all the things that they're telling about you, that is negative about you, are lies.
Yeah.
I have, just like what we talk about, my teachers in psychology, Miss Pat. But every time she walks in front of us, we don't see, our teacher is fat. We said, wow, mom's boob is big. I mean, because she was able to divert our attention on something beautiful on her.
I don't know if that's the
How did
best.
she do that?
I mean, no, because she's fat, but because if you're fat, of course your asset will be, bigger something. So what she does,
Well, amen.
I guess.
I mean, no, this was I was in college, I'm not yet a master at that time. And college is kids, So she dressed up like so tight, and then she put a V-neck, something like. When you look at her, automatically your mind goes to the center of
All
this.
right.
Is this like Royce or Phil Adams?
I'm just gonna
Where's
say,
Domir?
ladies, that's not the best way to do it.
No,
Okay. You're not supposed to draw attention
Okay,
to just.
I think the point
The
that
point.
he's trying
yeah,
to make
it's like instead of look,
psychologically
yeah,
is you're trying to attract people to what
what's
you
beautiful.
want them
yeah,
to
what's
see, right?
because
This
So
isn't
you want
going
them
where I
to
thought it
know.
would go.
because imagine if she will not do that, all her life she will be bullied like a fat teacher,
Yeah.
fat, ugly teacher, something. But we never even thought about that, that she is fat or ugly. Something.
I think you do make a good point. I remember, and as far as the fact of highlight the things that are the things that you have that are your strengths.
Yeah,
first.
sure.
So that can happen in any area of life. If your strength is speaking, speak. If your strength is sports,
Yeah.
why not take
Mhm.
advantage of that? But I was going to say that when it comes to what you're talking about, embracing those things, and if you feel less about yourself, I remember one of the quotes from one of my friends is from Keelan B is our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond belief. Who are we not to be intelligent, smart, beautiful, and I think a lot of people, they need to hear that they have something. Everybody's been given a gift in some way,
Mhm.
and so to figure out what that is and find out what that is I think great and important. I remember this one analogy, and it talks about how if you judge a fish by its ability to climb trees,
Mhm.
then it's gonna think it's terrible or stupid
For the rest of its life.
Yeah.
So my question is, how did you figure out what your strengths were, and then how did you use that psychological trick to attract people to the strengths that you saw in yourself?
Well, me, I first of all, I try to entertain myself. I try not that kind of entertainment.
You're in the mirror.
I try because as a
Dance movie.
you cannot depend on your brothers and your sister to play with you, right? Because you're the youngest.
Okay.
And they're all. So you try to play with yourself. So when you play with yourself, you imagine something. You're in a game. You're in playing basketball alone, something like that. So I discover what I like. Then when I discover what I like, what I enjoy, then I cultivate it.
Okay.
So I realized that I like words, playing with words.
Mhm.
So I started doing poetry. So I decided
Okay.
from poetry, now I wrote a book because I try to make, when you're in my situation, you try to create a world,
Okay.
a perfect world for you, because you don't have a perfect family. So you try to create a perfect world in your imagination.
Mhm.
So with that, I realized I can do this in book. No, so I created a story and then put it in writings. But the story that I create is inspired by true stories, by people I met.
Okay.
So then I created a fiction out of it. Just like Sylvester Stallone when he watched the fight of Ali and Frazier.
Yeah.
So he was inspired to write the movie Rocky.
Yeah.
So same thing like that. It's fiction, but it's inspired by the one that
So,
you
so
experienced.
you're working on some writing some fiction books right now, or
Yeah,
some different scripts?
I already finished the book about Filipino American children,
Oh, okay.
our long journey to our fatherland. It's a story of Filipino American children that was left behind in the Philippines, and they were excluded in the U.S. American Act of 1982.
Now is that on Amazon now?
Yeah, it's in Amazon.
So
It's,
go on Amazon, check that out. It's say the title one more time.
Our long journey to our fatherland.
Our long journey to our fatherland, and that's So that was fictional, but it was based off of...
Inspired by true story.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get it also in Barnes and Nobles and in exlibris.com.
Cool.
So is it kind of like you're connecting parts of true stories that you've heard and creating one story with those different...
Yeah, so
stories
it's like
that
you added
like-
graphics on it to make it more fun or more enjoyable to read,
Yeah.
something.
filling in the blanks.
Filling in the blanks,
Yeah.
something like that. So,
That's cool.
so because of that, that's how I discovered my what I can do. And then how to overcome my fear on the crowds is like I went to the crowd. I mean, I started, I conquered my fear. So I joined the fellowship. I started going to church and getting involved with the ministry.
Yeah.
And then little by little, they let me lead a prayer. When you started learning how to lead a prayer, and then you started learning how to share the Bible study,
Nice.
share your testimony until become a pastor.
Was it like slow, gradual thing?
Yeah, I mean, unless you are really were born as extrovert, if you're really extrovert, like you really love attention or crowd something.
Right.
So, but to a person like me, I think I'm extrovert in some way, but it's not as extreme, but at the same time, I'm also introvert. I wanted to be alone sometimes. I like to working alone, So there's a negative on that one also in the ministry, because as a pastor, there's no such thing as lone ranger. In the ministry, you need help. You need
Right.
someone. That's why, when God sent the disciples, He sent them 2 by 2. So He never sent them 1 by 1. So
You have an interesting story because it's kind of the opposite of all of us, and I'll definitely want to come back to it because your story, from what I remember, if I remember correctly, you grew up Catholic,
yeah,
and then you became
Southern
Baptist.
Baptist.
That's so funny because we kind of grew up a little bit Baptist on our,
Yeah.
on our parents' side.
Our dad is a Baptist minister.
And-
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And my mom's side of the family are all Baptists, but we became Catholic, so we switched spots.
Switch.
So I definitely want to talk about that later. And then Nate, your story as well is.
I was Mormon.
And
Yeah,
then,
LDS. Third generation LDS. Yeah,
but then you became Catholic, what, 10?
a while ago.
Yeah, a little while
A
ago.
little while ago.
I think before us,
Man,
actually.
Mormons, they allowed you to have more wives.
That's a myth.
That's
But I know where that's coming from. See, we're
a
battling the misconceptions.
I definitely want to dive into these ones later, but we'll come back to that. One thing I was going to ask you, you mentioned something. Oh, I was going to say, I love that yours was sort of progression, getting in front of people and speaking and being able to be confident on stage. I want to tell you a story, and see what you think about it. So when I was, I used to be terrified of public speaking, like I said before. I was absolutely terrified. I get up there and someone would ask me a question or they would ask me to say something, and I would get so nervous. I would just hand the mic to somebody else.
Oh.
Even after I started acting and stuff. But I remember being up on stage one time, and it was actually up in Oregon. And we got asked to talk about one of my films, To Save a Life. And the message of the film was about bullying and teen suicide and some really important topics. And so I get up there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, because I'm reading from this paper, and I'm going down the list of different things to look out for bullying. And as I get closer to the bottom, I start to get more and more nervous because I know after I'm done with it, I have to say something from the heart to the audience. And so as I start getting close to the bottom, I'm thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? What am I going to say? I get down to the bottom, I look up, and previously when it comes to that point, I get so nervous I'd hand the mic to somebody else. But all of a sudden, in 1 second, all my fear went away, and I realized that I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be the most articulate. I don't have to say the most profound thing. All I have to do is tell them the truth.
Mhm.
And it was enough. And basically what I told is that they have a purpose. That there's God has put them here in this earth for some reason. They have some reason here. That they're special in some way, and never give up. That there's always hope. There's always hope. There's always somebody there who will want to be with them in their darkest moments. I think about anybody who's ever experienced that loneliness or those darkest moments, and are thinking about making a terrible decision in their life. Any one of us, I know, would want to be there to to give them hope, to want to stand by them. So my message, is always you're never alone. So if anybody's out there thinking about that, I just want to jump in there and say that real quick because I think that so often in this world, especially with what's going on with COVID and whatnot, there's a lot of suicides have spiked and people are losing hope.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good message. What you're saying is that no matter where you start at, you can find a way to overcome some of these things, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
Was there anybody who was a big influence in your life, in your early years, or?
Well, actually, group of friends. Not only one person. It's a group of friends because you can find comfort in group of friends because every friends have a different personality, and every personality you learn.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
they inspired me in a lot of ways. That's why if you will read my book, there's a lot of character there. That one character in my book consists of multi friends of mine. So put them all together. So
Oh,
you
yeah?
will, even their story. In chapter 1, you will see like 3 or 4 of my friends' story, similar to that. Not exactly each, but if you put them all together, it will be like the chapter
Oh,
1.
okay.
Do they know that? Do they know that?
They will if they read my book.
They will know. Right? This sounds like
Yeah.
me. And my
Do you think that they will get upset about what you wrote?
They love it because
they
it's
love
about them.
Okay.
We're trying to change a law from the U.S. Congress, the U.S. American Act of 1982. And for me, this is the only way or the best way because we tried all means to talk to the Congress, to senators. That in the 80s and in the 70s, they always say, take a walk, take a hike. So now if they will in our generation right now where discrimination is very sensitive topic and they're trying to fix a lot of things about racial discrimination or equality. So
But that's what your book is all about.
Yeah.
It's about the discrimination.
against women, like
So
especially
maybe it's-
Filipino women.
Can you go into that? Talk
Yeah.
about the.
Because
Filipino
the U.S. American Act of 1982 gives preferential immigration status. If your mother is from Thailand and your father is American, you're automatic U.S. citizen. If your mother is from Vietnam or South or Korea, you're automatic U.S. citizen if your father is American. But if your mother is a Filipina, you're not. So,
Now, did that law specifically grant those privileges to people from those countries?
yeah.
Or was there language in there that specifically denied those privileges to people from the Philippines?
No, because it specifically said that these are the group of people only
Okay.
who are included in that one.
Okay.
So it
So they
was
just overlooked
yeah
people from the
excluded is
Philippines.
Japan and Philippines. I can understand Japan because this was in 1982,
Mhm.
and somehow a lot of congressmen or senators at that time fought in World War II.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they still have that anger against Japan or something. But in the Philippines, where they have been your ally for a long time since World War One,
Yeah.
the theory that we have is that there are many theories. Number one is that in 1946 or 47, when we had our independence from America, America gave us a choice whether to become a state, the 51st state, or we become independent. And at that generation, they're fed up with foreign powers, so they said, no, we want to be independent. So Manuel L. Quezon even said, I rather have a hell country run by Filipino than a heaven country run by Americans. He got his wish right now. So,
So with the Immigration Act, so you're saying that the theory is after the end of the 10 years from a presidential commonwealth
yeah.
to independence, you think that maybe a lot of these policies, because even the Rescission Act,
Yeah.
all these things that suit Filipinos, and the Filipinos have been probably one of the staunchest allies of the United
Yeah.
States, that has something to do with this immigration.
Yeah, and remember, they also created a law preventing Filipino to enter United States in, I think, Tidings-McDuffie law. I believe that, you remember that? Yeah, that there's a limit because when the U.S. annexed the Philippines, a lot of Filipinos started moving to moving to the mainland because they're being hired.
Especially nurses, right?
Farmers.
Oh,
Most of them are farmers.
Through the Exclusion Act.
Yeah.
We didn't count during the exclusion
Yeah.
Act.
Oh, yeah.
So we are cheap. I mean, labor. We don't complain.
Yeah.
And then when even though it's not our job, if our boss tell us to do something for favor, we do it. You clean this house, for free something because he's your boss, you do it. That's how Filipino is. We're very we're very generous. We move the another another step, something to please our master.
You go above and beyond.
Yeah, something like that. So and American doesn't like that. And the things about Filipino is that if you will read the history, we earn a very, very small amount of money and we spend most of that money in dress. So if you will look at history, Filipinos, even though we're just farm workers at the time, after farm they go out, they dress up like, Hollywood stars. So American girls started liking Filipino, and American boys doesn't like that. So they started fighting. so and
So American girls didn't like.
no, they like it, but the guys, the men, started getting jealous. So there's a fight mostly in I forgot the place in California.
So why do you think that because of what you just said, it did lead to the Watsonville riots and other things, and most people, especially Philadelphians, don't know about these things.
Yeah.
Henceforth, why we're doing this video series. Why do you think that this kind of history has been hidden from us learning about this in social studies?
Well, if you will look at it, he who holds the history books, writes them. We don't know that. The truth is, Russia is the one who beat the German, but in history, we know that the Allied, the United States, beat the German, but actually it's the Russia. But because we read the history from America, we read in the history that we have to be grateful to America because they're the one who brought education in the Philippines, the USS Thomas, or the Thomasite teachers. The USS Thomas is a ship. America brought a lot of American teachers to the Philippines to teach English. But the truth about the Thomasite is that in those times, Filipinos, after we got liberated from Spain and America started annexing the Philippines, we only know maybe 2 or 3 languages. Spanish, because for 300 years we've been colonized by Spain. Tagalog, and our local dialect, like Kapampangan, Bisaya, Cebuano, Ilocano, maybe that thing. If you're from Manila, then Tagalog and Spanish. That's the only thing you know. So then the new colonizer came, the Americans, and they only speak English. So we can communicate with them. So what's the best thing to do is to educate us. So they sent the Thomasite. Not because they're concerned about our well-being, our education, but because they needed someone that they can communicate when they're instructing us. So, because remember, they established the public school system. That's the only thing. The America, because in Spanish era, it's a lie that America is the one who brought education. Actually, Spain brought education. That's why we have University of Santo Tomas, University of Ateneo, La Salle.
Yeah.
UST is older than Harvard University. So
it's interesting because I've always heard that the Spanish they didn't really help educate the Filipinos.
no, actually, San Juan de Pro, UST, they were established there to cater to Spanish Filipino or the ilustrados. They're the rich Filipino. So if you're a poor guy, you won't be able to enter those universities.
Sure.
That's why a lot of our revolutionaries, like Jose Rizal, Luna, they're all half Spanish. They have the money to go to those universities.
Yeah.
So
would you say education, as it stands right now in the Philippines, obviously we can all improve.
yeah.
But it seems to me, even if I'm looking at the education system here in the U.S., it's way behind what kids should be learning. Or what kids
Yeah.
could be learning. So would you say that it's the same in the Philippines and or behind, or it's moving ahead? And if so, what's your thoughts on that?
Because I can understand why this, because the education system they're preparing us to be a workforce.
Yeah.
You know, they're not preparing us to be the businessman. You know, if
Yeah.
you will look at the curriculum, you know,
I completely
Same thing
agree.
here.
And that's,
Yeah,
that's why I
same
think it's the
here.
problem
Yeah.
with education here. You're absolutely right. Is that it doesn't prepare you for anything.
they don't teach you how to prepare taxes. You know,
Taxes, how to be an adult,
Yeah.
just how to do
or how to read the stock market. You know, they know where.
Stock
There'd be a
market.
lot more practical things
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
teach you.
I think you're
Yeah.
absolutely right that it's the education system. It seems here in the U.S., you know,
Yeah.
the Philippines, I would say probably a lot of the public schools is very, it's very basic and unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's 12 years of schooling, and when you get out of high school, you're not even prepared to be an adult.
Yeah, that's why I always tell my friends, take advantage of internship. Internship, it's still preparing you to become a workers because they're giving you experience, but try to learn from your boss. Like, you know, you are in, let's say your internship is in New York stock market. You know, learn that how to read stocks, you know, so you can invest yourself, not only work there, you know.
Yeah.
So, or if you're working in some companies, you know,
Although the stock market's been kind of.
yeah, it's bad. But
What do you think right now? Do you think it's going to go back up?
Well-
or do you think it's going to crash down for a bit this time?
my boss is an economist, and I've been to many economists. They always say what goes down will always go up, and what's go up will always go down. So
Buy low, sell high.
yeah, if they reach the bottom, they have no choice but to go up.
Buy
And,
low,
you
sell
know,
high.
so but the thing about this is that you have to learn how to predict, and we cannot really predict stock market no matter what we do.
What about
It's a lot.
What about the education? So what do you think could be changed? I mean, how long have you been here in the States now?
2013,
Yeah.
something, you
So
know.
about 7 years.
Yeah, something like that.
So what you know about the education system here versus the Philippines, where do you think we're going wrong with this generation in education?
I think we're going wrong on teaching the values first.
Values
Just like
first.
in Japan. Before, in the Philippines, in the 80s, we have the, we call this s- uh, good moral and right conduct, GMRC. Yeah,
That's in where?
yeah, in the Philippines. Yeah. It's a subject. They're teaching you good moral and right conduct.
Now, do they still do that today?
No, but they changed it to
Ah.
values education, but it's not as good as.
Is it watered down?
Yeah, it's watered down. Yeah.
See, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that that's a shame because if you don't, you can't be happy if you're miserably selfish.
And not only that, a business without morals
Yeah.
is, you know, it's like, let's say, if I have no morals and I'm in mining business,
Yeah.
then I will destroy the environment
Yeah.
for as long as I get money.
Yeah.
know?
Or you'll use your
Yeah,
Exploit
abuse everything.
workers.
Yeah.
I think that's
So-
totally true. I think if education were just to change to be two branches at a certain point, again when you're younger, math and reading and those are really important. But I think in junior high school, when you get a little older, it really should focus on I think two branches, and that is number one, how to be an adult. Everything you need to know, how to take care of yourself, how to be responsible,
Mhm.
how to be independent, how to do everything an adult needs to be able to do.
Yeah.
Why is it that we're graduating? And I'm the same way. Why is it that we graduated and we didn't know how to do just like everything we needed to be as an 18-year-old adult? Why are we being held back in that way? And then number two is, I think, how to be happy.
Yeah.
And I remember this story from John Lennon when he was in second grade. Teachers told him to get out like pen and paper and write what they want to be when they grow up. And all the kids wrote police officer or firefighter or doctor, and he ended up writing down happy. And when they turned it in, they're like, you didn't understand what the assignment was. And he said, no, you didn't understand life. And so I think that's really profound because if you can take care of yourself, number one, and you can be an adult, and you can be happy and fulfilled, not like on the basic superficial levels, but really figure out how does somebody find true fulfillment and meaning in life, because you're not always going to have whatever you're not going to always have, the perfect, movie-esque life, but you can find great meaning. This is one thing I really like about, Jordan Peterson?
No.
Okay, well, a lot of different, even, what's his name, who was in Viktor Frankl, said a person can endure almost any suffering as long as they have meaning. And so I think that applies to the part of life where if you, even if you can't get all the, you're not going to be as wealthy as the next person, but if you can find some way to have deep meaning in your life,
Mhm.
then you can find fulfillment in that. And I think it always extends outside of yourself. If you're always looking inside yourself, I think I said earlier that you can't be happy and be selfish. I think if you're always looking inside of yourself and trying to say, how am I going to get, but you never realize that life is, really about, it's really about giving. Mother Teresa and Albert Einstein said that life isn't worth living unless it's lived for others. And so I think if kids understood that, yes, work and be able to take care of yourself, but this is why family and friends and having some sort of purpose beyond yourself is so important. I think people will be a lot happier.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things that the world forgets. That you can be the richest guy in the world, but you can be the loneliest guy in the in the world. I have some
Yeah.
patients. I'm a caregiver also. In the past, I have some patients who spend the rest of their life earning money, and they are billionaires. They can afford the most expensive food in the world, but they cannot eat it. I have to put it all the like pizza or spaghetti. I have to put it in a blender machine
Wow.
and make it a puree to eat them because they will die if they eat steak. I mean, even the steak, I have to put it in a puree. So, but they can afford the most expensive vacation, but they cannot go because if they fly, they die. So, uh, they realize that they spend the rest of their life trying to earn money. They thought they will be happy. Now they're spending their money just to have a little bit of their extended life. That's like you spend all your strength to gain money. Now, I mean, you spend all your health to gain money. Now you're spending all your money to gain health.
Wow.
So it's they don't understand, like, yeah, you can be rich and then you forget spending time with your kids, spending time with your wife, or prioritizing that your family, and then later on you end up your kids is not no longer calling you. You're old, your kids is very far away, not calling you because they never experienced, they never had developed that attachment with you. So
Speaking of attachment, how did you become aware of this situation that you're writing about in your book with the Filipino American children, and what inspired you to write a book about that?
I grew up with them. Basically, my best friend is a Pilam, and yeah, some of his stories in my book. So, uh, I, I, when growing up, I was in our street. Most of them are from UP, University of the Philippines,
Oh, okay.
and activism is very popular in the 80s at the time. So I started developing the hunger for justice. Justice.
So you were one
So
of the original
yeah, so
SJWs.
so with
OG
this,
social
yeah,
justice warrior.
so when I heard about this, that the U.S. American, I cannot believe that. Really, you're saying that all Filipino women are prostitute because their
Wait, who was
husband.
saying that?
The U.S. American Act. Basically, when we protested in 1982, they said that the reason why the Filipino American are not included is because they were conceived in prostitution. In short,
Very
all their mothers are prostitute, and that's not true. My friend, his mother, he's not a prostitute. They met in university with his father. So, but they generalize that all in the Philippines are prostitute born. And don't tell me all children in Thailand and Vietnam are not conceived in prostitute.
It's incredibly insulting.
Yeah, and it's very discriminative, and then they said that the reason why it's not included also is because there's no war when they were conceived, there's no war between U.S. and Philippines. It means it's peacetime.
Yeah.
There's no war between Thailand and U.S.
Yeah.
or Laos but they're included.
Mhm.
So there's something more to it
Yeah.
than that. That's what I said. Maybe because we said no when we become to become a state.
Uh-huh.
So you don't want to become our state, so we will also nothing. Or another thing is that the one who lobbied this law, I think they have an organization in the Philippines. I will not say their organization in the Philippines. They're trying to get sponsors for PhilAm. Let's say I have a group of PhilAm here. I have some organization in the United States. You want to sponsor this boy to go to elementary, high school, college, and then this family will sponsor them. And all money that goes to this boy goes to our organization first. We get our cut, like 40% or 30% of the money, and then goes to the boy. And the boy can, every time he wrote a letter, it has to be goes through us. We will edit it. No, you cannot say this. You cannot say this. The boy will not know the address of that sponsor. The sponsor will not know the address of the PhilAm. He has to go through the organization, because it's $1 million organization. It's a non-profit, but they get their money. Of course, you get their salary and everything. So, and the one who levied this has the organization in the Philippines, not in Thailand or in Vietnam, in the Philippines. So if Philippines will be included in the U.S. American Act, then this organization will be useless, because these kids now can go to the United States and be reunited with their parents. So that's one of the conspiracy theory that I think so that happened. That's why they said, okay, approve this, but exclude Philippines.
Yeah.
So, Reverend, we're here at this wonderful historic church, the Los Angeles Baptist Church, Filipino Baptist Church. Tell me a little bit about the history and significance here in LA.
This is the first, after the very, very first non-Catholic church in the United States, or in California in the United States.
Really?
This is basically in the history. It was founded in 1975. Most Filipino churches here in the United States, they rent, but we own the property. So most of the Filipino churches, Southern Baptist churches here in Southern California, is planted by this church. And I'm so fortunate enough to be the senior pastor of this.
In the Filipino community.
In the Filipino community, yeah. In the Filipino. Yeah, because a lot of, you will notice also earlier we were talking about the cultural of Filipino.
Yeah.
We Filipino, when we migrate, that's why I said there's a PhilAm culture now.
Yeah.
When you go to the United States, usually we move to the cheapest location.
Yeah.
Most of them are gang. There's a lot of gang. It's like you don't walk there at night.
Yeah.
But that's the cheapest that we can afford. But because we are hardworking people, we work hard. We sometimes our day off, we still use it to earn money. We have 2-3 jobs, and then later on, we will not stay in that location. We move to Glendale. We move to Burbank. We move to other nicer places for our family.
Sure.
But in start, we adjust, because we have a cultural saying that in Tagalog, pag maigsi ang kumot, matutong bumaluktot.
Hindi ka na
Kumot is mean blanket. If you have a small blanket, you learn to, what do you call that? So it's a cultural thing for us Filipinos. So we adjust on what we have, and then when we have kids, we have friends here. This is a PhilAm culture. Like we go to a party, right? You bring food. When you go home, you have more food than to bring home.
Oh, yeah.
Second, a lot of Filipino friends of mine, they said, all my time, I thought I have a very big family. I didn't know that my only family here is my parents and my brother. Because when we go to party, you introduce your friends to your kids. Hey, this is your Tito Robbie, Tito Shan, Tito Nate,
Yeah.
So these kids think that they're all related. So we become like one big family in the United States.
Yeah.
So, and that's a PhilAm culture.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, we just call them kuya, but we know that they're not our relative.
Yeah.
Kuya, ate, But here we call them tito, tita,
Yeah.
So that's part of the things that when you grew up here, you get scammed by your parents.
So how did the church really put roots here in the heart of Los Angeles? How did this all start?
Because the Filipino, when we move to the United States, you need contacts. You need friends, especially if you're alone. So the church is the best contact to go to. They're very what do you call that?
Welcoming.
Welcoming and
Yeah.
accommodating.
Accommodating.
Yeah. So a lot of Filipino, even though they're Catholic in the Philippines, when they come here, they're easy to invite in the church.
So was this an existing church that became the Filipino Baptist Church, or was this a new congregation that was started by an individual
Yeah.
organization?
It was started by individual, by Pastor Piol. Pastor Paul has a radio program, and one day he went to this grocery, and some pioneering members here. There's no church yet. They recognize him. Said, "Oh, Pastor Piol, I'm one of your listener in your radio." And then, "Oh, why don't we start a Bible study?" They started a Bible study, and then it grew up. Then later on, they needed some more space, and then we rented before in Pakla in Filipino American.
We use Pakla all the time.
Yeah. So then we moved here when we bought this property in 1975, I believe, or 76, when we moved in this property. So from here, a lot of pastor, famous radio commentator. I mean, in the Philippines, they're pastor in the Philippines who have a radio program. They moved to the United States. They pastored here. So a lot of historical happened here, and a lot of churches was planted by this church. So
And how about you? How did you
end up here
How did you decide that you wanted to
to be a pastor.
serve the Lord in a full-time capacity?
I always, when I was a young, I don't want to be a pastor. My dream is to become a law enforcement.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, my family is in the law enforcement. My brother is a police captain. My brother, my friends
Here in the Philippines.
in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
So, and this is not my plan, but when God calls, you will just notice it. Like, hey, I love doing this. I'm, and then I realized I made, as I said, I always love to make a imaginary, situation. And I always imagine myself, let's say I am this, I already reached this stage, and will I be happy, and not being a pastor, not sharing, not being involved in the church, that, if you're, let's say you're a police officer.
You have a passion for
You feel
Yeah,
fulfilled
something,
when
yeah.
you're doing that.
Yeah, and then I said to myself, even though if I will be the general manager, because I studied hotel and restaurant management, and then I become a general manager, and I said to myself, I will still not be happy, even if I reach this point, if I'm not involved in the church.
Mhm.
So I decided to go back to school to study theology. So for the past 4 years, almost 5 years in seminary, I realized, well, I think this is it. When I moved to the United States, a lot of my family or friends, they said to me that, how can a theology feed you? I mean, hotel and restaurant management can be, you can apply for a job in a hotel or a restaurant. Psychology, possibly, because I studied psychology. So, but theology, I mean, how will you cannot just go out and work? But when I moved to the United States, among all those three, theology is the one that the U.S. immigration approves.
Oh,
I mean,
interesting.
you cannot have a working visa as a hotel and restaurant management. It's so difficult because the immigration will say before you hire a foreigner, you hire the local in your restaurant or in your hotel. And in psychology, it's hard because there's a lot of process, there's a lot of certification to do. But as a pastor, it's simple. If you're ordained, so the church ordained me here. So and then the U.S. immigration approved. So among all those three, the one that less expected,
Interesting.
It was practical and you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's and when God puts you on something, you will really enjoy it. God will not call you on something that you will regret later on.
You may not enjoy it, but you won't regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in start you will not. I mean, because there's a lot of issues that if you have 12, you have 100 members, you have 100 problems. because their problem is your problem. Yeah. Hey, your father is a minister, right?
Yeah.
So I hope you have an idea because imagine if you're a member, especially in the Philippines, they don't have money to pay the electricity. They go to the pastor. Pastor, can you lend me some money?
Yeah.
So their problem is your problem. So
I think they had a question.
So, seeing your passion for some of the injustices that have happened in the Filipino community and the relationship between the United States and the Philippines, do you believe that churches and its members, or even someone being the senior pastor, should they be activist pastors? Should they talk about the politics within the realm and scope of the community of the church, like some pastors have elected to do, or should that be something separate? Like, do you talk about activism from the pulpit, or do you say, we should take this outside of the church because it distracts from the word? So people have two different takes on that. What do you think?
There is a thin line between the separation of church and state.
Is that also in the Philippines? I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
Actually worldwide. Because of at the time in the in the Spanish era, that the church dictate, the government, the governor general of the Philippines, the Spanish gobernador general, is being dictated by the prelate or the priest
Sure. Yeah. It was kind of
the bishop.
It was kind of seen. I heard it was kind of seen like the government and the law and the church were like two hands of God. So to speak.
One holding the sword, one is holding the cross.
Right.
If you either you accept the cross or you accept the sword, something like that. That's how they do it. That's why we're Christian now, not a Muslim.
Yeah.
So
why are you a Christian?
me?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I studied theology, so I studied all kinds of religion. Theology means study of God. So we studied Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity.
Yeah.
So I think the most logical and the most theology that I can accept, only for me, this is just my opinion, is the Bible.
Yeah.
The Christian Bible. But other than that, it's hard for me to believe. Like, you're telling me that in other religion, it's like, if you're not a Christian, if you're not part of the religion, they can kill you. I don't believe on that one. Or they can rape you if they can kill you, rape you, and everything if you're not part of the religion. I don't believe on that one. In Christianity, we're being taught to love our neighbors as we love yourself.
Yeah.
If you love yourself the way you love yourself, then you don't want harm to yourself, then you don't want harm to your neighbor. I think that's
So
moral.
you think the values
Yeah.
of Christianity made sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So that kind of leads me to another question. I was going to say you grew up in the Philippines and then you moved here to the United States. What do you think are what is the difference between the values in the Philippines and the values in the United States, if there are any? What do you think those are?
It's very different. I mean, in terms of respect to elderly. I mean, if you call your mother their first name, you'll end up in ICU. I mean, if you call your dad their first name, I saw some kids here calling their dad their first name.
Oh.
I mean, even their stepdad, in the Philippines, basically, if you have a stepdad, they really call them dad. Or at least tito or something.
Because they're an authority.
Yeah, but they don't call them their first name.
I didn't know that growing up. I dated someone who was white.
Really?
When I was, I think, 22. And when I met her dad, I didn't know what to call her. I was like, hello, sir. What do you call white people?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's and you will think twice before you say no to your parents. And here, just like what we talked about before, that time out in the Philippines, time out means your father is trying to time out from beating you. It's just, okay, time out. I'm just gonna catch my breath. Okay, again. So time out here is like they put you on a corner, right?
Like
in the Philippines,
time
time out. You know, let me scratch up. You know, let me get some water, and then they beat you again. You know?
That's going in the clip.
So, I mean, but somehow we view that as abuse. You know, right now.
Yeah.
But I experienced
What's the line?
I mean,
Because I think that punishment is important, because I think that, at certain ages,
Yeah.
you don't know, and so you can't use reason.
Maybe
So
not punching, but what do you think about spanking?
spanking.
spanking. The Bible is very clear that the Lord, chastised the one that He calls His children.
Yeah.
You know, and He basically disciplined them. It's more painful actually to be disciplined by God, but somehow that's the only way we will learn.
Yeah, the only way to learn
Yeah.
it, we can't be happy without discipline.
Yeah, meaning there's a saying that you cannot let your kids realize, the mistake that he made until if he cannot experience pain.
Mhm.
Right.
You know.
So would you recommend for Filipino American families here to spank their kids?
Oh yeah.
Spare the
I mean,
rod, right?
yeah.
Don't spare rod.
If I smack my kids and my kid said, "I'm gonna call child good, so you can leave my house," I don't have to raise you, because they will take your kids away from you, right?
Yeah.
And you think that's good to you? I mean, that's good to me. I mean, so that's what. Remember
That's some good points
you
there.
know the comedian guy, the Russell Peter.
Yeah.
He said that immigrant parents beat their kids.
Yeah.
Because when he said that to his father, he said, "Ooh,
I'm really scared.
let me get the phone." so even though sometimes you have to call their bluff, the kids. They're just who wants to spend the rest of their life being in the orphanage or something, or the foster parents.
So, real quick, to be clear on the original question, should pastors, community members, be more active? Because that's what you see nowadays,
Yeah.
especially with the youth.
Oh yeah.
They're getting involved in different organizations, some which we may not even agree with, as even against our values. Should pastors be a lot more vocal in the political spectrum, especially as we go to
Yeah.
the socialist, communist event?
When the state started mingling with the theology, with the way of life of the church, then that's the time the church will say, government, you're overreaching. We have this law that government overreach.
Yeah.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
So when the government started saying that, I respect gay. I mean, gay and lesbian. I have some friends, gays and lesbian. I love them. I don't hate them, but I don't agree on their lifestyle. And they respect me. They respect my opinion. I respect them. We go out. We enjoy. We laugh. But I don't agree on same-sex marriage.
Mhm.
So when the government started telling me I can officiate again, I should or not.
Or you
Okay,
must.
I must officiate. Then that's the time that
Yeah.
church should make their stand and say, "You're overreaching."
Yeah, do you think government should just be completely out of marriages and regulations
Yeah.
and all that stuff anyway?
When they started telling us what we should preach
Yeah.
or what we should do inside the church, then that's the time that a church has to stand. Imagine, some of the mega churches here have 25,000 members.
Mhm.
I mean, that's 25,000 voters, basically. Or let's say, not all of them are American citizens. Let's say 10,000, from that 25,000. You have 10,000 boys to go to your congressman and say, if you don't do it, we will vote someone else. So, and somehow we fail to do that. That's why look at us now, They're telling us to do this, to do that in the church. Now, let's say a church, a businessman who is a very faithful Christian, and then there's a gay couple because he has a bakery. They wanted to make him the cake for the and he cannot write it. He cannot in his heart he cannot.
Yeah.
In the military they have this what do you call that? They cannot force you to hold a gun if your religion. Remember that?
Oh, a conscientious objective.
Yeah, something like that, and that's your First Amendment. A guy I saw in a video that a gay guy is scolding a store clerk saying, "You don't call me sir, you call me man, because I'm a woman." I said, No, no. Sorry, sir, but because the guy is a Christian. If I'm that guy, I will say, if he said to me that, don't call me sir, call me ma'am, I will tell him my First Amendment tells me I can call you sir. Because that's my First Amendment, your freedom of religion.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that? I mean, I guess you just said it, but what's the issue of compelled speech, where someone is dictating to you what you must say?
Yeah, that's why if that is going on, then the church has to stand up and become an activist. But if the government, now it can be the other way around. If the church started dictating to the government what the government should do, then that's wrong. When the government, let's say a church will say, "Oh, you should put illegal. All gay has to be arrested." Then that's not right. So it's it's a two-way road.
But I agree with what you're saying. There should not be compelled speech.
Yeah.
Even Jordan Peterson talks about how it's part of the Marxist ideology that's seeped into the culture. And it's totalitarian. In its essence. So we should be able to have freedom of speech, and if somebody wants to be called by a certain name or something, that's fine. But I shouldn't. Out of charity, I could call them. If it's
if you want,
if you want
to,
yeah.
But I should not be arrested or cited if I choose not to do that, or if I choose to remain silent, or if I choose not to talk at all. I should not be compelled to just say whatever they want me to do. I should have that freedom.
Yeah, someone's desire to be called something shouldn't trump your freedom to speak however you want.
And these are just traditional Filipino values that we hold.
Yeah, because if a gay couple come to me and said, "I want you to marry us," and I said, "No," they sue me. But if I go to their house and said, "I invite you to go to my church," they said, "No, I cannot sue them." So it's like a double standard thing. Like they want me to believe their belief, but they don't want to believe my beliefs. About God. I mean,
so it's funny because the tables are
it's reverse discrimination.
You have to tolerate their lifestyle.
Yeah,
but
they don't have to tolerate yours.
Yeah. They won't tolerate your beliefs.
And nowadays, if
tolerance is only going one way.
One way, double standard. It's nowadays just like the Duck Dynasty said. The father said that not because I disagree with you, that doesn't mean I hate you. Not because I disagree with them, that doesn't mean I hate. I have gay friends.
Case in point, you're Baptist, I'm Catholic. I disagree with you on some theological issues, but I doesn't really hate you.
Yeah, that's right.
I care about you, and I care about everybody, no matter what your
beliefs
are, no matter what your lifestyle is. I love and care about everyone, and I think that there has to be that grounds of, agree to disagree, care about
civil.
and be civil, and we can all live together. I mean, I don't even like that bumper sticker necessarily, the coexist bumper sticker. Whatever happened to that, society where we used to, we coexisted. People had different beliefs, but we got along in society. We respected each other, and we, even if we didn't disagree on those beliefs, we still were civil.
Yeah.
And I think that we've gotten to a point in time, where that is being done away with, or in a lot of different in the current mindset of some of the people in our culture.
Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of groups demanded toleration, which the majority of people extended to them.
Yeah.
And then once they grew to power, then they failed to return the favor.
Exactly. They said, tolerate. And we said, okay, tolerate, absolutely. And then now it's like, no, you will accept. You will say it's good. And it's like, well,
that's the problem. Start, when they wanted more than toleration. So they want you to embrace them. I mean, I have no problem you coloring your car rainbow, but don't force me to color my car rainbow. I mean,
I like simple colors.
Like if somebody gave you a sticker, rainbow sticker, put it in your car, you say no. Oh, you hate us. You're a racist, or you're discriminating.
It's silly, and it's it's petty and superficial, unfortunately. So I wish everybody knew that, just because you have a difference of belief does not mean I don't care about you. I care about everyone, really, in that sense, equally. In this modern time, why do you think Filipinos should continue to embrace the traditional Filipino values?
Yeah, I had an experience in a church before. I went to this Baptist church, and of course, as a Filipino immigrant, you want to look for Filipino, fellow Filipino. And then I walked to him, I talked to him, he talked to me, and then I started speaking in Tagalog because he knows how to speak Tagalog. And then he reprimanded me, saying, "Don't speak Tagalog here. We're in America. We should speak English." I said to myself, I've been in Clark, where a lot of America. We never say to American, you're in the Philippines, you speak Tagalog. I mean, it's like somehow they're shy. I mean, or they're not that proud on their language, on their being a Filipino root. It's like they started developing hate, like I wish that the Philippines like this, or it's like they're creating an idea of Philippines. But that's how the Philippines become unique, for a difference between America and Philippines. And we should be proud as Filipino because we Filipino, I think, have more common sense than any, because you know uh, in 19 as I said, in 1935, when all the countries, in the world, when the Jewish German wanted to escape Hitler from the violence, or of Hitler, all countries denied them of visa, and only Philippines, and at that time we're just a Commonwealth Republic under United States, and only us who gave them visa to come here.
We're the only Asian country to accept
The
refugees.
Refugees, and they call it Operation Open Door. So every year we have a monument in Tel Aviv, in Israel.
Oh, really?
Every year they celebrate the Open Door, Operation Open Door. That there's a movie about that, the Quezon's Game. It's in Amazon Prime, I believe. Yes, Quezon. And he was crying when he saw, after the war, when he saw what Hitler did to those. He said, "I couldn't get more, but he's only people 1,200." And the president's wife, President Duterte, wife is one of them, one of the kids who migrated in the Philippines. That's why the mother's name, the children's middle name is Zimmerman.
Oh, okay.
So that's why Sarah Zimmerman Duterte. They are half Jewish. And when the Philippines did that, all the reporters all over the world went to the Philippines and said, "Why are you helping these people?" He said that Manuel Quezon, our president at the time, said, "The question is not why I'm helping them. The question is why nobody is helping them." So you see, as Filipino, it's embedded to us to be kind to our neighbors, to have that common sense. Like, man, they needed help. So that's why the insurgency in the Philippines, especially in the southern Philippines, where they basically took over one area, and the Philippine government cannot reach that area. Even the military, they don't go there because it's under their territory. If that happened in America, the United States would have bombed that area, or send the Marines or destroy that area, and nobody cared. But because we are more concerned on what other people will say to us, we started massacring this terrorists. But that's how we are. As Filipino, we should be proud that we have that big heart.
Yeah. I think one thing that one reason why why I do embrace that traditional Filipino culture is the values is the family.
Yeah.
I think in modern culture we see that there's been a backlash against the family. People even wanting to destroy the nuclear family and get rid of it altogether. And I think that, as we talked about before, that's how you learn who you are. And to destroy that really destroys that sense of identity that you have, the sense of respect that you see your parents have. and that sense of community that you have within that family community, that is that has really been the backbone of society. I love the. There's a quote from John Paul II that says, "As the family goes, so goes the culture and the world that we live in."
Yeah.
So I think that I love the Filipino family values. One thing I was thinking about though was when it comes to what you were talking about, how some Filipino parents will say things like, "Well, because I said so."
Mhm.
I think that's the one area that I think could have a little bit of a change, because I think that young people, like we were talking about before,
Mhm.
there's so much that they can learn. So to deny them the reasoning behind
Yeah.
a decision, I get it. If he just keeps asking, then you're gonna because I said so. But I think that there's something within that where explaining the reasoning behind the decision brings them up and teaches them that um, you're not just a totalitarian dictator just
Yeah.
because I'm in charge, but you want them to learn so that they can gain wisdom as well on why you're making these decisions as a family. And I think that raises them up to also
Yeah, you have to treat them as adult. If you want your kids to behave like adult, then treat them like an adult.
yeah
Because I heard my parents say, in Tagalog, they said, "Para kang isip bata." You're like you think like a
kid.
child. But I'm a child. I mean, but in short, they just wanted us to behave like a gentleman, a man, a grown-up man. So then, if you want your child to behave like a gentleman, then treat him as a gentleman.
yeah
You talk to him like he's part of the family. His opinion is matter.
yeah bringing them up and expecting more out of them.
And sometimes their opinion, you know, carry a big weight because they're honest. They will just say whatever they will look and what everybody was saying, and then they will give their honest opinion.
Yeah.
And sometimes those honesty hurts. That's why the parents say, "Go back to your room. Go back to your room. You're not supposed to talk to your elders." That's because it hurts. Because it hurts the truth.
I think it's good because in some ways they learn to speak what they're thinking, but they can do it with tact.
Yeah.
And so there's respect, but there's also a way they learn how to word things that are respectful and in a respectful way. So if they aren't allowed to have a voice, then they're going to feel timid, like they're so afraid of what they're going to say. But if they are allowed to, maybe they come off too hard, and then you can teach them that was the wrong way to say it. And so they actually learn how to communicate better.
It's like it's like talking to them like adult, like you're talking to an adult. You should not say. You should just say something like this. So, because if your kids grow up learning that, when he become adult and he pays interviews from boss, he knows now confidently how to talk to them,
Right.
how to become to lead a meeting, on an executive meeting. So he will learn to do it. Because the problem with us is like, as I said, we Filipino, we train our kids to become a workforce, not to become a businessman. Our educational system is designed for that. And don't get me wrong, we did an excellent job. That's why a lot of Filipino overseas in Saudi Arabia, a lot of their boss, employers always said, "I have the best engineers that I ever had is Filipino. I have the best workers are the Filipinos." Because we train well our workers. I mean, our chick in education, we train them in English. They never been to America or England, but when they speak, they're more fluent than me. I mean, I said to myself, these are the new generation of workers. But in the Chinese Filipino culture, it's different. They train their kids to become a businessman. At very early age, they assign them. Okay, you write this. You every time there's a rice coming in, you check this. They become businessmen. So they become boss.
So what could we change in the Filipino mentality or educational system to try and get people to capitalize on the skills that they learn and go into business for themselves?
We have to incorporate practical business strategy in our educational system. I think Duterte is doing that That's why he added 2 more years for technical training. Because if you know technical, just like what we talked about before, if you have some skill, you can start your business using that skill. Let's say you're an electrician, you start a small business, and then from that you start evolving from other things.
Yeah.
So a guy, a boy, he became millionaire. Actually, not billionaire, but millionaire Filipino at the age of 25. At 19, he finished his computer programming. But in their house, they have a small business. They sell feeds to their community in Bulacan. Feeds like food for the pigs, for the chicken, for the fish. But because he used his skill as a computer programmer, he said to his parents, "Why don't I computerize everything? So it will be less work for us." So his family gave him the power to manage the business. So he computerized everything, like everything is in computer. He made a software to do that, and then he started selling not only in Bulacan, in Manila, in Mindanao, in Visayas, all over the Philippines by shipping them. It's like selling it on eBay or so. Now their market from small town market, it becomes a nationwide market. That's what we call globalization. Now it's selling to Australia, selling to now if a big company in Australia who has let's say a fertilizer or a pesticide, they go to him. They contact his company saying, "Sell my product." So now that's how big he is now. Now he has his own farm. He has his own building in Makati. So because his family is in a business, so maybe probably he learned that we have to have our own. If I will just be a worker as a computer programmer, he will not be a billionaire or millionaire at 25, right? Nobody will if you become just a regular worker in the Philippines. That's why I said to myself, I have a time frame. At a certain age, I have to give up working in America and I have to start my own business. You know, and I will do that first in the Philippines because it's a trial and error. If I fail, I have small money to invest because of the labor and the cost of doing a business in the Philippines. It's small investment and small loss. Like here in America, big investment, big loss. Now, if I succeeded in the Philippines, from that, then I can transfer it to America, and then it can be grow and big. So that's what I'm planning to do for myself. And I wanted to teach this to younger generation. I wanted to teach my nephews and niece, how to read the stock market, how to invest in stock market. Yeah, you're in college, but you have allowance, you have money, save it, try to invest in stock market. And that's how Warren Buffett started.
Yeah.
His father told him to invest. He had like $10 or something.
Okay.
So look at him now.
I think it's kind of funny. I remember when I was growing up, I would always be told by my grandparents, save your money, save your money, save your money. But I was always like, in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I save my money, what? So I'll spend it later, Okay, I'll save up some money and then I'll spend it during the year at Christmas time or something. But no, it's kind of funny because you weren't taught that, once you save up money, how do you use that to invest it, to maybe buy property, to maybe buy stocks, like you're saying. I think that or to put that money to use, or maybe start a business. Yeah. There was never that. It was like always save
There's
money.
There's a missing link, huh?
But there was never what do you do with it then?
Yeah, that's right.
And so it just kind of felt like, okay, I just save up money and then splurge on something, if something comes along. But there was never that training until I got older and started researching and reading books and watching YouTube videos myself.
And second, how can we solve the poverty problem in the Philippines? Look at Singapore, South Korea, Israel. What is their common denominator?
You told me this last time.
The common denominator is that all their citizen has to join the military at a certain age. If you finish high school, you reach 18, you have to serve in the military for 2 years. That's mandatory. And in 2 years, you will be trained by the military. You will be disciplined by the military. Right? You will know how to obey law. You will know how to defend the Constitution, follow orders, accomplish missions. So when they go out after 2 years, they still carry that mindset. They're still programmed. So when they go to school, they're focused.
Yeah.
because somehow at the back of their brain, if I fail on my study, I failed my superior officer, and if I fail him, I'm gonna be in trouble, something like that. So and then they know how to follow. The problem in the Philippines is that in college, like University of the Philippines, a lot of communist rebels, they go to university, try to brainwash the student to join them. So imagine these are future executive officer. These are future scientists, future biggest businessmen.
Yeah.
But they end up in the mountain fighting the military, and then they die. They get raped by their commanders or something. And so if you are a former military, you study in UP, and then this communist will come. Remember, you are a military in your mind, and you were trained to defend the Constitution. You will say no to this guy because you basically fought against him, right?
Oh.
In the Philippines, so we can eliminate that.
Yeah.
And second, when they go to work, they have this military discipline. Like, this is my job. I have to come on time. Remember, we have the military time. You have to come on time. And if you come on time, you're late. It means you have to be there 5 minutes early.
Sure.
So, and then work ethics. They once you give them assignment, they accomplish it. Discipline, yeah. So that's why, remember, Korea was devastated by World War II, and then Korean War. But look at them now. They have their own jet manufacturing company. We bought our jet from them, the F-A-50. It's like the knockoff of F-15 Eagles. So look at Singapore. Singapore was when Singapore is part of the Malayan Federation. They're part of Malaysian. It's like a federation. They separated. It's like Texas left the union, and Texas and Malaysia said, "We're giving you 3 years. After 3 years, we're gonna go back to us because they don't have water. They're basically buying waters from Malaysia, and they have a contract for like 200 years in a contract. So, but look at Singapore now. They're the only first world country in Southeast Asia. Their money exchange rate is $1 is to 1.3 or 1.4 Singaporean dollars. So basically the same. So, and then look at Israel. Israel, the moment they declared independence, they were declared war from different things. Egypt, Syria, everybody's trying to eliminate them. But because they maintain discipline. Look at Israel now. They're part of the first world country. They have the best technology, best military.
Yeah.
So if the Philippines will require all students after high school, you have to serve the military for 2 years. Now, how do we do this? In 2 years, you will serve the military because instead of receiving regular military payment, you'll just receive half. Half will go to your trust fund for your college. So once you get out of military, you have now free education. The money that you use, the salary that you're supposed to receive in that 2 years of service in the military is now being transferred to a trust fund like a GI Bill in America. So you can go to college even though you don't have money.
Yeah.
So even, let's say I came from a poor family. My parents cannot send me to college. With this money that I served in the 2 years military service, now I can go to college.
Yeah.
All I have is my brain, something like that.
Yeah.
So now you can finish your education. Plus, we now eliminate the probability that this student will be brainwashed by the communists.
Yeah.
Second, when they graduate college, when they go to work, they are disciplined.
Yeah.
Nice.
So probably that will help our
I like
economy.
that idea.
That's really interesting. So there's communists. You're saying are infiltrating the schools,
Yeah,
the colleges.
yeah.
I keep hearing that that there's a lot of feminism that is growing in there, which is
Yeah.
interesting because if you look at feminism, it's really an offshoot of
Communism.
Marxism.
Yeah.
Lenin.
All equality. All are equal.
Which is interesting because if you look back on history, it seems to me that feminism has been one of the worst things and one of the things that has actually hurt women and men and children the most.
And it's a threat to our culture.
Yeah.
As Maria Clara. Because if you go to UP, one time my friend is in the bus, And inside the UP, in order for you to go to your next subject, you have to ride the bus or jeep. So because it's a big university, it's like Harvard, So he, of course, when you saw a female standing up, you give your chair. But when he did that, the female got mad at him and saying, "What do you look at me? You think that I'm a weak, I'm the weak gender. I'm a weaker gender.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, it's kind of interesting that feminism has basically said we don't like chivalry.
Yeah.
So you have men who are trying to be accommodating and trying to be gentlemen, and now it's teaching men to be callous towards women,
and it's a threat to the culture.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think it's a threat to all of us. I mean, and it's a threat to women. It's told women that all you should do is, focus on your career. And even if you look at the different four waves of feminism, definitely with second and third wave, you have this idea that third wave feminism is like almost, or third and fourth wave are seeming like this very hatred towards men, towards the patriarchy, and it's a very toxic thing. I see them; they're not happy. They're really miserable. And in fact, we're looking at this one study that if you look at the most miserable women in culture today, it's really sad. But the most miserable women statistically are single women who are around in their 40s, who never got married or had kids, and all they did was and they have careers. All they did was focus on their careers. And the sad part is that they've swallowed this lie of feminism, which basically tells them don't worry about any of that until you're in your 30s. Well, by then it's really hard and too late because a lot of guys have already gotten married, and so you have when a girl is 18, she can date almost anybody. There's a lot of options, but when she gets older, most people have married off. Most people have already started their lives, and then it's kind of like musical chairs. It's kind of like musical chairs. You can only play it for so long, and then everybody finds a seat, and you're kind of stuck.
And they have a biological clock. I mean, if they want kids,
Yeah, but most women are fulfilled. That's the thing, because most women, statistically speaking, are fulfilled by having families. And so this is the one thing I love about the traditional Filipino values, is that it's family oriented, which actually helps men, women, children. It holds those family values that actually helps build society. Society is built off of family, and so for communism and Marxism and feminism that's kind of gone into the culture, you have to outright reject it because it's only harming people. It's not helping.
That's why feminism did not become so big in the Philippines, because our culture has more common sense. It's like we reject it immediately. Though there's a group, but
it's starting to grow, and that's one thing that the people need to be aware of.
Yeah,
I think the Philippines tries to emulate America too much.
Yeah, because of the social media.
Yeah.
Because in the 80s, remember in the 80s, in my generation, we only have the television.
Yeah.
We don't have the computers. Now, even in your phone, you can be brainwashed by the West or something.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's hard. It's the threat is big now compared to the 80s.
Right.
Because remember, feminism started in the Cold War.
Right.
This one. Where they started saying all are equal. I'm equal as you are as men. But
it started actually around the Bolshevik Revolution with Vladimir Lenin.
Oh yeah, communist. Yeah.
But then the eras have definitely moved over to, especially in the United States. So you definitely see the breakdown of culture here. How it's culture here.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is in the Philippines. When they started doing that in University of the Philippines. It was in the late 60s, 70s, where they started becoming hippies, rallies, civil rights. So it's really a threat to the culture, but because we have more common sense on that one, like who doesn't want to sit in a chair, and the guy, somehow we still have that, and we just don't care, it's like we don't care what. I will still be as gentleman as I can be, something like that.
So I was gonna say, I've noticed that Filipinos, I think more than other Asian cultures, like to blend in America more than other immigrants that come here, and they tend to want to
Assimilate.
assimilate.
Yeah.
Do you think that perhaps we try to do that too much?
We Filipino, the sociologist said, we're not inventors.
Uh-huh.
We are innovators.
Mm-hmm.
You invent something, we improve it. Like they invent some dance in the United States. Suddenly, a Filipino will improve that dance. So that's why there's a lot of knockoff in the Philippines. Rolex. The best Rolex knockoff you will see is in the Philippines. My boss, he bought a Rolex in Manila, in Green Hills, and one of the chain, fell apart. He went to Rolex store, so they fixed it, and then the guy said, "Is this real?" I said, "Why?" Because if you will say this is real, I might believe you, because they really exactly copy it. Unlike the one in China, the made in China, it's like the what do you call this? Tornillo. The parts, yeah. They're like it's like this, but to a Rolex, it's like really a screw.
Oh, okay.
It's like, and there's even a serial number and everything.
Wow.
So it's perfectly made.
Mm-hmm.
That's why if you will buy a knockoff Rolex here, it's $200 compared to $50 from made in China. So because we basically love to copy a lot of things, in the United States. So and assimilate by assimilating it, we're trying to copy them. We're trying to copy their culture, trying to copy their dress, trying to copy their lifestyle. But in the long way, we still put a pinch of Filipino culture on that one.
Yeah.
We put some 3 stars in the sun. We make look like a hip hop, but somehow we put some Philippine flag. Somehow we still have, like in our store, we make burritos, right? We put adobo burrito. We still put something in it. We assimilate, we copy, but we put a little bit of Filipino culture in everything that we do. In short, we're still hooked up to our culture.
One of the best burritos I ever had was a sisig burrito.
Sisig burritos. You see, we try to, we're not inventors, but we're innovators. We try to innovate a lot of things.
Maybe to wrap up, I'm just going to ask you, how do you think that Filipinos, when they go to different countries and immigrate, how do you think they can retain their distinctive culture and values?
Well, if they said that Filipino is the citizens of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You go anywhere in the country, even the smallest country in the world, there you will find at least one Filipino. That's what the reporter said when he went to this near China when Genghis Khan. What's the country of Genghis Khan?
Mongolia.
Mongolia. Imagine this is a communist country, and then there's still Filipino working there. So, because in order for us maybe not to forget, we are from child we are embedded that we are Filipino. Taas no. We've been embedded like in the Tagalog. Taas no kahit kanino. Ako ay Filipino. It's like you aim high, like be proud as Filipinos. It's been being taught like that ever since we were young. And then when you're old and you are embedded in that, it's hard to release that unless you grew up in a different country.
Right.
But if you grew up in the Philippines, trained there in the Philippines, you will always love the Philippines, and you will always have that special part in your heart, the Filipino culture. Yeah. You will always look for adobo.
Definitely, I feel you. I didn't even grow up there.
Well, Glenn, hey, thank you so much for taking the time. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this episode of Entrepreneurs. We'll definitely have a lot more episodes like this where we're going to be talking about culture and traditional Filipino values. So we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care. God bless. I'm Sean Michael Afable. We have
Calima.
and then
Glen.
Glenn.
Rob Ruegsegger.
All right. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.